There is a word that heaven keeps whispering while the world keeps shouting, and if you ever learn how to quiet the noise, you will hear it calling your name. Purpose is not lost because God misplaced it. It feels lost because distractions have gotten louder than destiny. You have been asking for direction while standing in places that were never designed to hold your future. Divine advice often comes as an interruption, a holy disturbance that refuses to let you stay comfortable where you are. Purpose is not discovered in applause, it is revealed in obedience. There are instructions attached to your next season, and they do not always arrive wrapped in convenience. Sometimes God advises you to walk away before he shows you where you are going. Sometimes the advice is not about movement but alignment, not about speed but surrender. You have been praying for open doors while ignoring the inner renovation required to walk through them. There is a difference between talent and calling. Talent gets you noticed, but calling gets you sustained. Talent can attract crowds, but calling attracts resistance. And when resistance shows up, divine advice says do not retreat, refine. Do not panic, position yourself. Every delay you have experienced has been teaching you how to carry the weight of what is coming. If it had arrived sooner, it would have crushed you. Purpose responds to discipline. Heaven gives advice, but it is your consistency that activates it. You cannot live one way and expect purpose to function another way. What you entertain daily will either strengthen your calling or slowly starve it. Divine advice will challenge your habits before it changes your circumstances. It will confront your appetite before it expands your influence. There are some seasons where God advises you to be silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because what is growing in you needs protection. Not everyone deserves access to what God is forming in secret. Purpose matures in hidden places. What you rush to reveal, you risk losing. What you allow to be shaped quietly will stand firmly when tested publicly. Do not despise the pressure. Pressure is proof that something valuable is inside you. Divine advice does not remove pressure. It teaches you how to stand under it without breaking. You have been asking God to change the environment, and he has been advising you to change your posture. When you stand correctly, pressure produces power instead of pain. Purpose is unlocked when you stop asking why and start asking what now. What now requires faith? What now requires courage? What now requires letting go of versions of yourself that no longer fit where you are going? Divine advice will not always make sense to your logic, but it will always align with your destiny. You were never created to drift through life guessing who you are. There is intentionality woven into your breath, precision in your placement, meaning in your struggle. When you listen to divine advice, clarity replaces confusion and direction replaces frustration. What has been locked is not unreachable, it is waiting for your obedience. There is a moment in every life when heaven interrupts routine and asks a deeper question than comfort can answer. You were not formed by accident, not shaped by coincidence, not released into this world without intention. Purpose has been following you even when you were running from it, waiting patiently for you to slow down long enough to listen. Divine advice often speaks softly, but it carries the authority to realign everything you thought you knew about yourself. You have been trying to figure out your purpose by measuring results, but purpose is revealed through obedience before it ever produces outcomes. There are instructions tied to your becoming, and those instructions are rarely convenient. Sometimes the advice is to stay when you want to leave, and sometimes it is to leave when you want to stay. Purpose is unlocked not when life gets easier, but when your spirit gets stronger than your fear. You cannot walk into what is next while holding tightly to what was. Divine advice will confront your attachments before it confirms your assignment. There are relationships, habits, and mindsets that were necessary for survival in one season, but are now limiting your growth in another. God does not remove things to punish you, He removes them to position you. What feels like loss is often divine alignment in motion. Purpose is not activated by motivation, it is activated by discipline. You do not drift into destiny, you decide your way into it. Daily choices shape eternal impact. What you do consistently in private will eventually speak loudly in public. Divine advice will not always hype you. Sometimes it will correct you, stretch you, and press you into uncomfortable growth because comfort never produced calling. You have mistaken delay for denial, but delay is often development. There are weights you are not yet prepared to carry and doors that require character before access. Purpose demands capacity. Divine advice works on the inside before it ever changes what is on the outside. If God rushed you, He would risk ruining you. So He takes His time and builds you layer by layer. There will be seasons when divine advice instructs you to be quiet, not because your voice lacks value, but because silence is protecting what is still forming. Everything growing needs a hidden place before it can survive exposure. Purpose is fragile in its early stages. What you explain too soon, you can sabotage before it ever has the chance to mature. Pressure is not your enemy, pressure is your evidence. It means something significant is being produced within you. Divine advice does not promise a life without pressure. It promises purpose through pressure. What tries to crush you is often shaping you. What stretches you is expanding your capacity to lead, to serve, to stand. You have been asking for clarity, and clarity is responding to your willingness to move without full visibility. Faith does not wait for all the details, it moves on instruction. Divine advice will always require trust before confirmation. When you take the step, the ground responds. When you obey, purpose begins to unlock, not all at once, but piece by piece, layer by layer, as you learn to trust the voice that has been guiding you long before you recognized it, calling you beyond survival and into significance while shaping your walk, sharpening your discernment, and drawing you closer to the reason you were created to stand where you are now, listening for the next instruction that demands courage instead of certainty. There comes a time when life stops responding to effort and starts responding to alignment. You can be busy and still be barren, active and still unfulfilled, because movement without direction only creates exhaustion. Divine advice is not designed to make you comfortable. It is designed to make you correct. Purpose does not awaken when you do more. It awakens when you do what you were instructed to do, even when it contradicts your preferences. You have been trying to outrun uncertainty, but uncertainty is often the doorway to purpose. Divine advice rarely explains the full picture because faith is developed in fragments. You are given enough light for the next step, not the whole staircase. If you could see it all at once, you would depend on vision instead of trust. Purpose grows strongest in the spaces where you must rely on guidance instead of guarantees. There are patterns in your life that were never meant to be permanent. Divine advice exposes cycles that keep repeating because they feel familiar. Familiarity can feel like safety even when it is limiting your future. God does not always deliver you from struggle. Sometimes He delivers you from repetition. Purpose unlocks when you break agreement with what keeps pulling you backward. You cannot carry tomorrow's assignment with yesterday's mindset. Divine advice will challenge how you think before it changes where you stand. Your perspective determines your posture, and your posture determines your progress. Many doors remain closed not because God is withholding access, but because pride, fear, or insecurity has positioned you incorrectly to receive what is available. There are seasons when divine advice instructs you to plant instead of harvest. You want results, but purpose requires roots. What is deeply rooted will not be easily shaken. You are building something that must outlive applause and survive adversity. Purpose is not proven in celebration, it is revealed in endurance. What you nurture consistently in obscurity will sustain you in visibility. You have questioned your worth because progress felt slow, but divine advice is not rushed by comparison. Everyone does not develop at the same pace because everyone is not being prepared for the same assignment. Purpose is customized. The pressure on your life matches the weight of what you are meant to carry. If it feels heavy, it is because it matters. There will be moments when divine advice calls you to stand alone. Isolation is not abandonment when it is intentional. Some seasons require distance so discernment can sharpen. Purpose becomes clearer when you are no longer surrounded by voices that echo your fear instead of your faith. Solitude refines your hearing so you can recognize direction without confusion. You have been praying for confirmation, but divine advice often comes as conviction. Confirmation comforts, conviction corrects. Purpose responds to conviction because it demands transformation. What you are becoming cannot be sustained by who you used to be. Growth will require you to release old identities that no longer fit your assignment. The unlocking of purpose does not happen in a single moment. It unfolds through obedience repeated daily. Divine advice is rarely dramatic, but it is always deliberate. Each act of obedience turns a key. Each surrender loosens a lock. Each step taken in faith opens another layer of clarity, shaping your character, strengthening your resolve, aligning your steps with intention, and positioning you to walk forward with confidence even when the future remains partially hidden, and the only certainty you have is the instruction guiding your next move. There is a sacred tension between who you are and who you are becoming, and divine advice lives in that space. It presses on you, stretches you, and refuses to let you settle for a version of yourself that is comfortable but incomplete. Purpose is not hidden from you, it is hidden for you, protected until your character can carry the weight of revelation without collapsing under it. You have been searching outward for answers that can only be confirmed inward. Divine advice does not always change your surroundings, sometimes it changes your discernment. When your inner ear becomes sensitive, confusion loses its power. Purpose becomes clearer not because circumstances improve, but because your perception matures enough to recognize direction even in difficulty. There are instructions you have heard before, but postponed because obedience would have cost you too much. Divine advice often returns when the season is right, asking again what it asked before. What you delay does not disappear, it waits. Purpose remains patient, but it is persistent. The longer you resist instruction, the louder the internal unrest becomes. You cannot fully step into your purpose while negotiating with fear. Divine advice calls for courage that is not emotional but intentional. Courage is choosing alignment even when your feelings are unsettled. Purpose responds to decision, not hesitation. When you decide, momentum begins to form, and what once felt impossible starts to shift through obedience. There are battles you keep fighting because you refuse to change position. Divine advice is strategic. It teaches you where to stand, when to move, and when to remain still. Not every struggle is meant to be confronted head on. Some victories come through repositioning, not resistance. Purpose unlocks when wisdom replaces impulse. You have been measuring your life by milestones, but divine advice measures growth by transformation. Becoming is more important than arriving. Purpose is not a destination you reach. It is a life you live with intention. Every choice, every response, every sacrifice is shaping the direction of your influence long before anyone sees the outcome. There will be times when divine advice instructs you to trust the process, even when progress feels invisible. Roots grow before fruit appears. Purpose matures underground, where no one applauds, where patience is tested, where faith is refined. What develops in secrecy gains strength that exposure cannot destroy. You are not late. You are being refined. Divine advice is not concerned with your schedule. It is committed to your readiness. What is ahead of you requires stability, not speed. Rushing into purpose without preparation leads to burnout, but walking in step with instruction builds endurance that lasts. There are doors that will only open when you stop forcing them. Divine advice teaches you discernment, helping you recognize when resistance is protection and when it is preparation. Purpose aligns with timing as much as it aligns with calling. When the moment is right, effort feels lighter because grace is present. The unlocking of purpose happens as you submit daily, listen carefully, and move faithfully. Divine advice shapes your priorities, refines your desires, and strengthens your resolve. Each act of obedience sharpens your clarity. Each surrender deepens your alignment. Each step taken in faith reveals another layer of intention, drawing you forward with quiet confidence, steady conviction, and a growing awareness that you are walking in alignment with something greater than yourself, responding to instruction that continues to guide you deeper into meaning, responsibility, and impact as your life unfolds under direction that remains consistent even when circumstances shift.